In the creative arts industry, the murder of a project is considered especially heinous. The dedicated detectives who investigate these vicious felonies are members of an elite squad known as the Bleak Unit. The cases are real. The victims are real. The defamatory statements are all just jokes. This is Bleak. On today's episode, John Safran, the enfant terrible of Australian media for nearly 3 decades. With a string of hard-hitting documentaries already under his belt, John set his sights on the biggest target of all, the US. But despite making a pilot episode for MTV, the series never happened. And that pilot was never seen again, until now. Who killed John's chance to break the states? Which of John's many enemies murdered his American dream? It's time to catch a killer on the True Creative Crime podcast, Bleak.
Interview with suspect begins 11:27 a.m. Officers Hayden Bevis and Chris Kennett present.
Would you state your full name for the tape, please?
John Michael Safran, a rare reveal of my middle name. But it's not that interesting, so why would I?
It is, because my middle name is Michael.
Oh, okay.
Is that interesting now?
No, not even a bit. I'm glad we've finally been able to catch you, John Michael Safran.
You're very good at it. So I confessed my middle name. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing something right. I just feel like, I don't know, I am quite intimidated.
Hang on, while you're trying to reverse.
I'm not trying to do
me
reverse.
now.
I am quite intimidated by police and like politicians. I'm intimidated by authority, which makes no sense when you see my work. It's like, okay, John, how do you reconcile that with being,
Exactly. I mean, this rap sheet is unbelievable. This is just a few. Race around the world, music jamboree, John Safran's race relations, speaking in tongues, John Safran versus God, John Safran versus the occult, not the sunscreen song, Murder in Mississippi, puff piece. That's just a random selection. So many different credits, so many challenges to authority over so many mediums, film, TV, radio, music, podcasts, books. I mean...
Is there a favourite medium that you roll with?
So my last several like big projects have been books. I do like it's like slow cooking or something. If like you get to like, you just have to have a audio recorder and a notepad, and you get to kind of like wander around, the suburb where the killer killed someone and go door knock. And I do like that. It's kind of fun. But the good thing about doing a TV thing is you got a whole crew and they can kind of push you along and give shapes to things and make things easier, and it's not all on you. Like your book writing is very, like, you're talking like 90,000 words. You know what I mean? It's a lot of words, man.
Can we check on that? Is a lot of words.
Murder in Mississippi, the book that you did in the States.
Yes. That
had a different name in the States? Is that right?
Yeah, it was called God'll Cut You Down.
Why the change? Is there a story there?
No, because to Australian ears, murder and Mississippi sounds very colourful and evocative, but Americans just hear the word Mississippi so often that it's a bit like if it was like I had a book called Murder in Chadstone. You know what I mean? People would be going, okay, fine.
There's murders in Chadstone every day.
Why not colour it up a bit?
We were trying to angle for, John's already run into some issues with the book, like with an editor or something.
Lots of times when you run into things, they're not what you think. They're like for instance, on Music Jamboree, like the big drama I remember was, even though like we're secretly filming and we're sneaking into places, but the big thing I remember was we had a shot of a Slipknot album cover up for too many seconds, and that breached, copyright law. So we had to like shave off a couple of seconds. It's very, and also when I did Puff Piece, which was looking into Philip Morris, the Marlboro cigarette people, you'd just think that would be the biggest legal drama, because about them sneakily getting into the e-cigarette trade in their little sneaky ways. And you'd think that would be such a drama, but apparently it's very hard to defame a company. And so the thing I had to strip out of it was occasionally I'd make a sarcastic comment and I'd make the chairman of Philip Morris the stooge, like I'm having a dream and he's coming at me with an axe or whatever. And that was the problem. It was like because individuals can sue. So, but so there was hardly anything in this book that you just think would be the biggest drama because you're going after Philip Morris, the world's largest cigarette company. It was just next to nothing, next to no problems. My next book is another issue, obviously.
What's the story with this new book?
So it's called Squat, and the subheading is "A Week Squatting at Kanye's Mansion," and it's that.
How does that happen?
Well, it's not my fault.
I think it is your fault.
So when Kanye came out, as I'm sure some viewers and listeners will know, he came out in support of Adolf Hitler. And so it was just really strange, and there seemed to be something there. And, because like I'm Jewish and then he's supporting Hitler and also he's black, and also he's a celebrity. Oh, it's like all this stuff. So I didn't quite know exactly what it was, but I got on the plane and was wandering around LA, and like I met his pastor and I met these other people, and then anyway, one thing led to another. And, he's got like 4 mansions in Los Angeles, and he can't be staying at all of them. And so I was talking to a neighbor of his, and he was saying, Kanye hasn't been seen in his mansion like for a year. And I was like, And then, and this was in the rolling hills of Los Angeles County. So it's like pretty rural. And there's like woods behind his mansion, and there's a stream in front of it, and also gates and fence and stuff like that. But yeah, I found a little gap where you could go thread through and then cross the stream on this log and then go through the woods at the back and then like kind of fall into his mansion from the back. And then I spent a week squatting there, and I used it as like a writer's retreat to like write the book based on all the crazy stuff that had happened in the week and a half before that. So, it's a week of me there having to be very careful where I stand in the front yard because, like, neighbours can see you because they've got hills that are slightly risen on the other side and freaking out. And I did go I went a bit mad because it's like everything sounds like approaching footsteps. Everything... It's a very scary situation.
Can you describe Kanye's mansion for us?
It was the mansion that he used. He used an outdoor area. He'd built this sort of circular thing that he used as a church.
Yeah.
And the mansion he'd used for 2 things. He just used it for social things after church, but then also when he broke up with Kim Kardashian and then started going out with this Russian model, he used it as his bachelor pad. But it was sort of like totally abandoned, and it was falling apart. The interior of the mansion, everything was painted the same color blue. So it was some art thing or something, and there were like mushrooms coming up through the gaps in the skirting boards and grass coming up because like the roof was leaking and sort of like acting as some kind of watering can. So you'd be in this big blue room. That's why I slept on the first night.
Why does this make me feel better that Kanye has mushrooms growing out? Like I feel like
I don't feel better. I feel really.
I mean that I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm worried about John's health. I mean, clearly you survived.
Yeah.
So,
it was fine. It seemed normal at the time. Well, not that normal, but.
I can tell you there's nothing normal
Yes.
about what you've just said.
Yes.
I got to say that hearing just this story about you breaking and entering into one of Kanye West's mansion, you had a 75% chance of him not being there if you had 4. It does take me back to the thing that sticks in my mind from a million years ago, Race Around the World, is you showing how to break into Disneyland. And showing how to sneak in sort of through a gap in the fence and sort of get through a kitchen or something, and then you could get in for free.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a pattern of behaviour.
Oh, yeah, totally.
With you going back a long, long way, nearly 30 years.
Yes, of breaking into things.
And it strikes me that nowadays you go onto your social media, your TikToks, your Instagrams or whatever, there is a flood of young people just constantly doing transgressive stuff, doing stunts, doing what social experiments, freaking people out or breaking into something or doing a prank, just a prank, bro.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say there was always something more to it with you. You would get it. You were very, very good at getting attention with, the headline, the stunt.
Yeah.
I squatted in Kanye's mansion. Yeah. But there's always more to it. It was always a way of opening up a story about something else. With Disneyland, you looked at conditions at the park and what it was like to work there and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. So in the case of the book, for example, it's like Kanye is accusing Jewish people of screwing him over. So like I get to use this as a kind of to discuss the history of Jewish Americans versus Black Americans and place it kind of in a broader thing of like these like weird cultural fault lines that go beyond that. But I'm usually guided by my creative impulses. So in so much as I realize it's not going to be as creatively interesting or engaging unless I put in those layers. So yeah, it's a bit of a chicken and an egg.
So what comes first for you? Like, is it first I'm going to break into the mansion and then see what happens and then something interesting will come out of that? Or is it I've got something to say about Kanye, I need a hook.
Nah.
I'll break into his...
Project by project, it's different. With this one, it was very confusing for me because usually I have at least a thought. I have more of a solid thought. And then maybe once I go to explore it, go somewhere else or whatever. But here I was very confused about what the hell I was even doing or like what it all meant. Like for instance, when I got on that plane, for all I knew, it was going to be about the music industry. And I think that's even what I pitched to Penguin. I pitched to Penguin something like, Kanye's accusing the Jews of screwing him over. And so that's awful. But, artists throughout history from Leonardo da Vinci to Taylor Swift, they go, oh no, we are the victims of our patrons. But definitely I need the layer. It can't just be a prank because I mean, on a practical level, no one's going to, green light me for that. And also it's not what my audience.
I break into this thing. That's it.
Yeah. And there's not like my audience wouldn't want that or something. So there's that. But even on just a purely creative level, like it's really helpful having these two layers. It just kind of brings the creativity alive in a way that it wouldn't if it was just like one layer.
John, I know we brought you here today to talk about a pilot that you made that did not end up becoming what you. And we'll get to that in just a moment. Yes. But it brought to mind to me a pilot that you made well before that.
Yes.
I guess infamously for the ABC, the John Safran Media Tycoon.
Yeah, that's right.
I think nowadays you can just go onto I think they've got it up. It is something that you can access quite easily. Back at that time in about 1998, it was a bit of a myth. It was a bit of like people would hear about, John Safran made the show and then it didn't get aired, and so people would talk about it. But the most infamous scene is, which I know you have had to talk about ad nauseum, is the scene with yourself and Shane Paxton going through Ray Martin's garbage.
Yeah, so for the kids listening in, we have to explain who all those people are.
I realised I made a lot of references there.
There was a show, and it was a flagship show called A Current Affair on Channel 9, and it was hosted by a guy called Ray Martin. And he, the show used to just do this stuff where it just seemed a bit, like unfair, really. Yeah. But there was a lot of like door stopping, like where like a big camera would come in and they'd go into someone's shop or just knock on their house door or whatever and stick their foot in and, all that. And anyway, so they did this story a series of stories that became, quite well known against this family called the Paxtons, where the kids weren't taking jobs and they were unemployed, and they just did this thing where it's like, what was it? It was like, oh, and we're here at 10 a.m. and Shane is still lying in bed, you know, without a worry in the world. And like really setting up this family as like archetypal Aussie bludgers or whatever. Anyway, so then when I did my show called, or pilot called John Safran Media Tycoon, where I was like looking at the machinations, the media industry, I did this thing where I found out Ray Martin, the host, I found out his of A Current Affair. I found out his home address. And then I, you know, I dressed up in a suit like a reporter. And then I brought Shane Paxton, who was like one of the kids who'd been accused of being slack. I brought him along or whatever. So I'm like outside Ray Martin's Sydney house mansion, kind of going, you know, it's 11 in the morning and we've got reports that Ray Martin is still loafing around in bed whilst hardworking Australians all off at work, and we're going to see the exact moment he decides to come out of his house. And I've got my official timekeeper here and had a table set up and with like a clock on it, and you know, and Shane Paxton was the official timekeeper, and we're going to see the exact moment that Ray Martin decides to finally get out of bed and whatever. Anyway, then he ended up turning up. He was already out of bed. He ended up driving home because someone had alerted him to this. So he comes out of his car and he's getting really angry at me, and he does all the classic things that people who are victims of A Current Affairs, like all the tropes, like for instance, he puts his hand on the camera like that. So he looks really guilty, and he grabs me by the collar and shakes me a bit.
He wasn't happy.
No, he wasn't happy.
He was not.
And I said, it was really weird because obviously I wasn't really accusing him of being lazy or whatever, but he felt the need to defend himself, like whatever. So I was going, where Ray Martin, hardworking Australian, he goes, I was at work until 10:30 p.m. last night. So he's like defending himself against this ridiculous accusation. So for me, the point of it was, but I didn't know that was going to be I didn't know what was going to happen, but to be honest, but it just showed how, in the same way that he was not guilty. You know, it's like, well, how often do you watch a show and the person just looks guilty because they're kind of, is there like a camera there or whatever? And they're not guilty. And to be fair to him, I'm always sticking up for him, but he does not want to. I've like, you know, like on the project, on other things, I've really tried to do the olive branch thing and just explain, like, listen, you know, it's been a while and, you know, I don't have a, you know, like, but he's furious. To be fair to him, and this is like a bit of a brag in like that I'm smuggling in by pretending I'm being fair to someone else. To be fair to him, my show was kind of ahead of the curve. And so at the time there wasn't The Chaser, there wasn't Ali G or Borat. Like this was, there obviously was like some sort of weird energy going through the universe that disconnected people like from different countries were all feeling like this new genre of television. And so there was Michael Moore in America. He was here, and then there was things like Jackass, I guess, or whatever like that. There was something going on, even though we didn't know of each other's shows or anything like that. And anyway, so to be fair to Ray Martin, like he could not process what was happening. So it was kind of fair enough or whatever. And like he kind of, I think he technically speaking assaulted me, right? Because the ABC lawyer said afterwards, because this was for the ABC, they said, oh, do you want to charge him or whatever? And I was like, oh, come on. Like to be frank, I'm kind of on his side for grabbing me by the collar. Yeah. Oh, the other thing he's going to say, he made this big deal out of the fact that, which is fair enough, but he made this big deal out of the fact, we're just waiting there for so long and I was just trying to do content or like, you know, what's his story? So he had a recycle bin there. And so I did this thing of, just joking, I'm going through his recycle bin and I'm going, oh my God, he's got all these TV weeks. He's been filling out voting for himself to win the league. So it was just like totally nothing. Like I was not going through his bins like to find his private stuff. But because he knew that had happened because his neighbours told him, that became his big argument against me. He was like, he was going through my bins, which again is kind of fair enough. Like it's not like I can take the high moral ground here. But he's written a couple of memoirs, and in at least one of them, he brings me up, but he brings it up in the strangest way. Like he's talking about The Chaser, going, Oh, listen, I'd like to talk about the Chaser now. What funny guys, what great guys. I really think they've really nailed it when it comes to, being funny and doing these pranks and da-da-da. And then in this, like, almost non sequitur, like the most painful segue goes, unlike John Safran. And then he's got some reason that the Chaser got it right. I think the Chaser got it right because they didn't go outside his house. No, I did. But to be fair, like I'm totally on, I've got to wear it really. So Ray, I'm reaching out another olive branch or whatever.
I was going to say, whether it's with Ray Martin or whether it's sleeping at Kanye's house and worried about every single footstep that's about to come through and everything sounding like it, there is a sense that being comfortable in the uncomfortable is something you're good at. Do you like that? Or is that or do you feel like that it's important to do what you have to do?
I just, just people have different passions or whatever. Like someone's like going to be really into sport and just want to do it. And there's only so much that you can explain it with logic. Like why, you know what I mean? Like, so it's just kind of in me to do this, but it does serve these other purposes. I am a bit of a hermit. And it forces me out of my apartment. So it's like I'm a hermit, but then I sort of like go out to rallies where there's, neo-Nazis and stuff like that. And I talk to them. I'm like so uncomfortable approaching people, but it's usually not because they're like eccentric or they're a neo-Nazi, or it's just, it's so awkward going up to anyone, you know what I mean? And so with my TV work, I think it helps that I'm so uncomfortable with it because I'd like write these things for my TV where like I'm like Ali G in my script. I go, anyway, then I go up to them. Then I say this and bang, they're taken or whatever. But then we film it and I'd just be so fumbly and like forced to do it because I've gone past the point of no return. It's like there's camera crews here, like so much money, and it got commissioned and it was like 6 months to write and get through Screen Australia. So it's like, now I have to actually do it. Like there's no way I can't do it. And often the editor, like what was in my head where I'm like, bang, then I take them down like Ali G. It's just me, Abel. Yeah.
It's just the rod for your own back.
Yeah, exactly.
In any of these, your initial versions of it, do you ever write down, you got Safran?
Well, the Freemasons once sent a complaint letter to SBS saying that they welcomed me because they thought I was going to do a serious documentary, and then we realised halfway through we'd been Safran.
Imagine the amazing feeling of just realising at that moment that you are being, oh my God, I'm being Safran.
I'm in this fortunate situation where I don't have a plan B like work-wise.
Oh.
You have to earn money, to buy groceries and live or whatever. And I reckon the reason I've produced 4 books and also these docker is that I just have to. I don't have a plan. You know what I mean? I don't get to sort of just leave the screenplay in the drawer and sort of kind of still fidget with it sort of 7 years later. I just have to it's my job. You know what I mean? So that's another thing that I think plays into it when I get an opportunity. I'm like, I just cannot squander this.
Yeah.
I get to go to America to explore Kanye or whatever. There's I just have to.
Yeah.
I'd be squandering things. It'd be like a waste of just say I decided I'm going to do a normal book about Kanye where I can't see how I'd do it because no one would want it. But just say it was more serious where it's I'm all judgy about Kanye. I'm just sitting at home and I'm getting all my information on the internet as opposed to going out into the world. No one wants me except in this context. The people who greenlight my projects.
Yeah.
They want me to be on an adventure. They want it to be fun. There's no market for this other version of me.
Oh, sit down with John Safran as he talks to you.
It's no one's getting Safran there.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are so many endless avenues we could Safran our way down here. But we did bring you in today to discuss a specific crime relating to...
I've been tenanted.
He's playing the mind games again. John Safran saves America.
Yes. Yes.
What were the origins of this?
Well, I'm glad you contacted me to be on this show because it made me have to think about this. I think there's like one sentence on the whole internet about this. I went over in 2001 to America, to Los Angeles, and then whatever that was kind of went away, and I'll tell you why. But then I went back in 2007 and did actually film the pilot. And okay, so the reason the 2001 trip to America is interesting is because what had happened is MTV, so MTV America, who's run by a company called Viacom, they had a show called Jackass on, which I think most people know that, but it's like, you know, Johnny Knoxville and Bam or whatever, and they just do outrageous. And
they're pretty extreme compared to what you do.
Yeah, like they get fired out of cannons.
Yeah, and they're like nailing things into their heads.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. A really good show or whatever. But then what happened was, and I was a bit confused. What happened was a powerful senator in America, a Democrat, Joseph Lieberman, and he called on MTV to cancel or reform the Jackass, saying MTV is partially to blame for a copycat incident that left a teenage Connecticut boy in critical condition with severe burns. So MTV and the production company were like worried that they were going to have to take Jackass off the air.
Yep.
And some person had seen because I did 2 pilots for ABC Australia. One was Media Tycoon that we talked about, and the other one was called John Safran MasterChef. Once again, I got ripped off. Like I had no show called MasterChef.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
You said that before it was a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so that one was looking at the food industry, right? And the machinations behind there. And there was this scene in there where what happens is it's like a bright and flashy, normal looking cooking show where I'm like the chef and I'm saying, how to make this Jamaican stew. You're going to need this. You're going to need these gherkins. You're going to need this, hot peppers. You're going to need this and that. And you're going to need some like tender meat or whatever. Then it cuts to me and I'm in an abattoir and I'm still like in like just what I was wearing before. And I'm there going, anyway, then you lead the cow up the, up the thing. Then you shoot it with the bolt gun and then pulling it with the bolt gun. Then you like slash the throat and then you cut. And it was like this totally gory thing in a real abattoir. And then it like, after all that, it kind of cuts back to me back in the bright, flashy kitchen or whatever. And it goes, and now you have your delicious Jamaican stew. Anyway, someone had seen that over in America and they were like, oh, like that's got subtext to it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's as outrageous and gory and weird and offensive as Jackass.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to justify it to people like Senator Joseph Lieberman.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like it's got a point to it or whatever. So then I went over in 2001, I think it was, and I just did all these meetings, and the first thing I remember is I had to sign this real long contract that was faxed to me. And my favorite part of the contract was it had like a suicide clause in it. Like if I commit suicide, like I won't get the, I won't get the remaining payment or whatever.
Right.
Like
What?
that.
Wow.
It was just like in the contract. So I was going, that's a bit dark or whatever.
Was that just specifically for you? Or was that a standard
it's for everyone. The other side note of a thing, this is just, I'm quite bitter about this because I feel like this is the ultimate historical revisionism where and people aren't, I do have proof that I'm right about this, is when I went there in 2001, everyone was talking to me like I was doing, oh, crikey, crikey, or all this stuff like that. I had no idea what anyone was going on about. And then it became apparent that there was this huge, like I've slowly worked out this incredibly famous, like as famous as Michael Jackson person in America, Steve Irwin, right?
Yes.
He was as big as Michael Jackson in America and sort of pretty unknown.
Yes.
In Australia.
It's true.
And he was also considered a bit cringe to Australians.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Because it seemed like, oh, you're doing that some corny thing. Like it didn't seem self-aware, like just say Paul Hogan doing Crocodile Dundee, which Australians loved or whatever. Anyway, somewhere over the years, Like he's obviously became as big in Australia and a phenomenon in Australia too. And it's been totally historically revisionist out that he was huge in America and they were ahead of us. And also people in Australia thought he was a bit sort of uncomfortable or whatever. Anyway, that's the other thing I learned when I went in. I remember from 2001, it was like some weird thing where I could not follow what anyone was talking about for like until I finally worked it out. Anyway, let's
Were
get
you
on.
just agreeing with them like, crikey? And you're like, yeah, crikey.
Crikey?
Did they keep thrusting dangerous wildlife at you? Do the thing.
Then, for better or worse, Jackass remained on air. So I was sent home. I was like, the substitute was not required anymore. So I went back to Australia. Then in that same year, I started filming Music Jamboree for SBS. And I remember that because I did the very first, I think, in the world, joke about 9/11 that wasn't tacky.
Okay.
Oh.
Because we're in
This is a big claim.
we're in the production office of at Music Jamboree, for Music Jamboree, and then the planes hit the towers or whatever. Anyway, so we're all kind of around the TV set, kind of watching, freaking out, seeing what was going on. And George Bush says, he said, in this time we got to think of I think of that great Bible, I think of that, as I walk in the shadow of the valley of death, da-da-da. And I said to people there, I said, I hardly think this is the time to be quoting Coolio. So that's like a joke. Okay, yeah. That's a joke that kind of really stands in, but it's not really offensive. Like and that was, so...
all right, well done.
Anyway, okay, so then it gets to 2007 and I'm back in America and I'm shooting a pilot for MTV and it's called John Safran Saves America. So by this point I'd filmed John Safran's Music Jamboree and also John Safran Vs God.
Yep.
So I kind of had a bit of a rhythm of things and also like a bit of a logic for my character, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, suddenly I was in a different context in America and I was finding it hard to make the thing, like, what am I? Like, where am I coming from?
Yeah.
What's my, what's my premise? And it was quite difficult. And also because for the sake of the show, the audience doesn't have a backstory with me.
Yeah.
And I actually finally watched the pilot last night because hadn't watched it in it. And only the first, there's like 3 stories. Only the first one's kind of good.
Okay.
The first one is the first story in John Safran Saves America is I talk about how the US Army had taken out ads in this hip hop magazine called The Source to try to get people into hip hop to join the army. And then I go, oh, well, if you're going to do that, like, what about other, what about the metalheads? What about the goths? And I go, what about the emos? And anyway, so then I go and film this, fake kind of, what do you call it? Recruitment video, trying to get emos to join the army. And then I show it to this guy who at the army who does all the marketing or whatever. And he's going, oh, that's really great or whatever. I've actually brought the, you can see the audio or whatever, and I can explain the pictures. Well, I can see the audio or whatever. Yeah. Let's have a look.
I took it to the Army, to Lieutenant Derek Hudson, who markets the Army to college and high school students. Do you think it's good for the Army to try to start marketing different subcultures?
Everything in this world is generational.
Yes.
So one way that we can capture their imaginations as well as demonstrate, not only what we do, but maybe tap into some of that adrenaline, if you would.
Yeah.
Is through their perspective.
So do you think like emos would be welcome in the Army?
Oh, certainly. There are all facets of life in the Army, from the potato raisers in Idaho to what you described in the emos.
Well, now, in your professional opinion, you can give the feedback to the
let's see it.
The piece.
I used to steal Panic at the Disco tracks off LimeWire. Now I do a different kind of downloading.
And bombs are being dropped on a village.
This used to be my morning routine. Now I follow a new drill. I used to cut myself. Now I'm cut. I used to think life was about my space, but now I know it's about defending our space. And I'm adding new friends each and every day. I used to hate the jocks for making fun of my painted fingernails, but now I know who the real enemy is. My parents, who didn't understand me or my poetry at all, used to have me on a curfew. Curfews? Now I enforce them. I used to think these guys really spoke to me. Now I've got a new chemical romance.
Your next scene, the U.S. Army.
So, yeah, basically it was like, because this was around the time of the Iraq, this was it during the Iraq War.
Yeah.
So
Also peak emo. So
Yes.
like really nailing it.
Is that clip available online anywhere? Or is
No. This is there's only one sentence about this whole show online. The other stories are just pretty unwatchable. There's the second one I do about how I have come to Hollywood and I realize everyone here in Hollywood is a Jewish homosexual. I'm already Jewish, but so I better become gay.
All right,
and then I go around trying to become gay, and it's all like just this kind of shock value stuff where I meet Perez Hilton, who was the blogger at the time.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Perez.
I do like how this is all like this captures this like weird moment in time. That,
My Chemical Romance.
MySpace and emos, and Perez Hilton, the blogger.
I think this could actually, I'm just thinking now that we could repackage this as like a retro experience show.
Oh, sorry. The next thing that happens after that is I go to these actual young people who are like actual emos, like in a focus group, and they're all just anyway. We can hear. Yeah, play it. Yeah, no one wants to hear me.
I can just imagine some like over 35 dudes who are like, okay, well, this is what might be hip right now, so we're just gonna kind of throw some shit together and hope it works.
I just couldn't believe that's what I was saying.
I found it to be stereotypical, tactless, offensive, disturbing, and somewhat predictable.
Yeah, well, I mean, not everyone who cuts is emo. And then they showed a bomb being dropped on some town. That's horrible. Like, innocent women and children, are you kidding me? Ugh.
It's not gonna do what they wanted to do, so.
I imagine a big boardroom of 30 and over guys saying, yeah, the teenagers are really into that whole emo thing. It has nothing to do with anything relevant. That's why it pissed me off so much, because it's so not relevant to the point, like at all.
I thought to myself, what do a bunch of teenagers know about marketing to teenagers anyway?
Anyway, so I go back to the guy, the army guy, and then kind of just get him to accept and he says, yes, no, I love it, and I'll show it around and all this stuff like that. And I'm only going back to this because there is a good last line where it says, what's the last line here?
Are you an emo sick of torturing yourself? Contact goarmy.com.
So when it says sick of torturing yourself, I cut to like this image of Abu Ghraib, which was like this torture thing where the American army tortured people during one of the wars then. Anyway, so that's fine, but the other two stories are just a bit thing, and like I never heard back really. It just kind of like petered out.
But
I have so many questions.
Yeah, how did you get it? How did they get you to? How did the pilot get up? Was it already a relationship you had with MTV? They're like, John, come over and do something.
Yeah, I think so. I think they just were like, in America, they've got more money to sort of try out different things, or at least back then they did.
Yeah.
So I think it was just. So the production company would have sniffed interest from MTV about me,
And they go, hey, we got a hunger to be Safraned once more.
Yeah.
Bring you back over.
Yeah.
You've gone straight into this this beautiful little time capsule of 2007.
Yeah.
As we've just experienced with the emos and MySpace and so much flavour. Whether or not the other segments are as bad as you claim, we may never know.
They are.
You've produced all this. You've handed that back to the MTV powers that be, and then you're saying they didn't get back to you. What?
Yeah, it sort of just kind of petered out or whatever, and then I started. That's when I started working on race relations for ABC.
So how do they tell you that this is my naivety in the business.
Yes.
How do they tell you that it just peters out? Are you hopeful that is this going to get up, or do you just move on to the next project? That
did you have big dreams about like I'm cracking the States? This is going to.
No, I didn't really. I don't know. It's hard to. No, I just wanted to do good stuff, if you know what I mean. I could tell this show wasn't quite right. Like it wasn't quite. That story is like works. But the other two kind of just weren't really emotionally true. There was something that like just not right about it. So yeah, so as soon as I got to start working on my next thing at the ABC, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'll just work on this.
And is that how you kind of go through things? Do you just like tie a knot in that and then just move on to the next project? Or
well, you kind of have to. Like, what else are you going to do? There's not really another option. Yeah. And it's not really reflected in that story, but in a lot of the other stories, like they were really pushing on me that it's like, you have to do something that our audiences can relate to. And it was like, that's fine. That's kind of cool. But it's like, maybe I'm not the person then. Well, I actually made fun of them saying that I had to do things that were relatable to all people. So I took like the scripts from this MTV show called Super Sweet 16, where it's these, like a reality show, and it's these rich 16-year-olds and their parties and, you know, how their rich parents, whatever. So I took like transcripts from that and just gave them out to like the normal people on the street, like homeless or whatever. And they're like reading out, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe this cake's not big, or whatever it was. So I was kind of like making fun of the whole thing of I had to make things relatable to a broader audience.
Do you think that making fun of the network that you were hoping to get a show with had anything to do with them not picking up a show?
No. I just think they just have other options, really. So yeah, it's not really their fault, really. Now that you bring it up in this therapy session,
yes.
I think I was thinking like, because I'm big on sort of like playing the long game and going, if I do good work, I'll be able to like continue doing other stuff because people will respect or whatever. I do that way more. I'm playing the long game rather than like something like, oh, but this is MTV, not SBS. Because I just know it's not going to work in the long term unless. Yeah. And I learned that from my pilot, my initial pilots that were, banned and locked up, and I just saw how, like, that became something. You know what I mean? It became like people were like selling the VHS tape under the counter at video shops. But then also on top of that, it became this kind of conversation. It went like viral through people talking.
I was going to say, John, that where I initially saw your Media Tycoon pilot is because a video store in Carlton with the very 90s name of Video Dogs had a bootleg copy of it that they were renting out, and it was doing the rounds of every student share house in Carlton. Yeah. So they're making like $3 weekly off your work.
Off me, man.
So I would be looking them up to try and recoup some money. It's not there anymore.
I just learned from that, like if I do the work that people think is good, like that solves the problem. Like people still talk about that, the Ray Martin incident, or me, like my SBS shows, like just say when I got exercised on John Safran Vs God or whatever, like all these things that are certain types of Australians have all heard of and think, oh my God, that's part of the popular thing or whatever. Like I'm sure that SBS show was like the lowest rating show. I'm sure like every episode of Music Jamboree and John Safran Vs God was the lowest rating thing on television that night, in that time slot. And it just kind of doesn't matter. Like it's sort of things take
but a life. But it still pervades the culture.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're like the Velvet Underground of like, like not many people bought it or saw it, but everyone who did went and started a mockumentary of their own.
Yeah. I just feel like I would totally sell out if I thought it was going to work. You know what I mean? But I just know it's not going to work. And so I'm going to end up with like just say I continue with this MTV thing and everything was this compromised, sort of like not as good as I just would end up, it wouldn't work. And I'd also, it wouldn't work in breaking me into the mainstream. Then on top of that, I don't even have good work to show for it. You know what I mean?
So when you set your crosshairs on John Safran versus America.
Yeah.
As John Safran versus is a thing that happens there.
Yeah.
Did that not feel right? Like that America was the target or something like that? Or was it too broad or something? Or
I think it's because I've got to walk this line where I can't seem too judgy. Like people don't like that. So I have to somehow make a point without looking like I'm wagging my finger. And I think there was just something about me criticizing America. Like, for instance, in the context of me being on John Safran versus God or Music Jamboree or whatever, or Triple J or whatever, like I can kind of make fun of and do lots of shtick about, whiny lefties who are like, because there's but as soon as I'm like even pushing my target on anyone that's sort of not I've just got to be a bit more careful because it just sounds a bit condescending and not funny and judgy. Even like in this book on Kanye West, I had to be really let things speak for themselves, like in regards to Kanye West's anti-Semitism, because it just became a bit weird. Like you just think, how can John Safran not be doing whiny judging this Hitler enthusiast? And for some reason, like my shtick doesn't match up with being whiny and judgy. I've even I did this book, Depends What You Mean by Extremist, where I was like out in the streets hanging out with these local, basically the Australian versions of the alt-right when it was sort of just bubbling and growing. Like I was up there in the street. And even that, I had to be really careful about how I kind of have a go at these like white nationalists in Australia. Like, ooh, excuse me, John. Oh, like it seemed like I was picking on bogans or something. You know what I mean? So there was just something that didn't work with me going America in that context because it was pretty hard because I couldn't look like I was like some sneering outsider. While someone else could and it would work for them. I'm sure like Stephen Fry or whatever could do it. But
are you sad about that pilot not getting up or are you just comfortable with it? No. No, not at all. All right,
it just kind of like is what it is. You know what I mean? It was just like, I guess if I was like really banking on that and I was like devastated and I didn't leave the house or whatever, that would be different. But, I was just going off to do other docos and books and stuff. So it's like, seems
you've moved on. Clearly,
I've moved on.
Well, as part of this show, we usually would try and identify the killer of a creative concept as to why. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but Chris has been writing down names that you've mentioned. So, despite you quite not really caring. About who killed it and why. Chris is still going to go through the list.
And I'd appreciate your input here. Sometimes the chronology gets interesting because the first name here, Kanye West.
Did he kill my pilot?
Yeah. Somehow having a feeling that many years later.
Oh, yeah, no, I think he blames the Jews for everything. I might as well blame him. I blame Kanye. Screw you, Kanye. You ruined my career.
Possibly even less likely Ray Martin, but we understand he's been
he's like a good guy
had a
now.
chip on his shoulder about you for a long, long time.
I know.
Can't rule him out.
Yeah. I reckon he would try to.
I know
take
he's had a rehabilitation in the public eye.
Has he really?
I think he's
I think young people don't really know who he is, and in so much as they do, he's he's done a lot of stuff hasn't he done stuff like on SBS and stuff? And
he has, and he's gotten involved with a lot of comedy bits here and there. He's poked fun at himself a bit, and he's
I've often thought I can't do that. I think it's different. Like I can say the truth as myself and kind of go, oh, listen, Ray, like, come on. I did write this thing for this potential show that never kind of we just didn't take it further or whatever. That involved apologies or whatever and looking at apologies and we'll think of the Ray Martin thing for that. And it just, and a bit like I was saying that some things just didn't sit right creatively with his John Safran Vs America. Just didn't. It seemed like what's the point in? No one's going to believe I'm being. They're going to think I'm doing a bit, which I am. So what's the point? So as soon as it's not emotionally true, I'm not really there going to go. Oh, Ray, I'm so sorry. Anyway, go on. So we're blaming Kanye, and also I'm not blaming Ray, but it's only because he hasn't he'll try to take me down some other way,
He's still working on his revenge. I've got the Freemasons here.
The Freemasons?
They did get Safran.
They did get Safran.
Yeah, because they got Safran. That's a good point. I haven't thought. I'm pretty paranoid. You're just putting all these other people in my head to be paranoid about. Now that you mentioned, probably the Freemasons too.
Yep. I've got two names here that you've mentioned, both conveniently dead now.
Uh-oh.
Steve Irwin and Coolio.
Oh, is Coolio dead?
Yeah. Did you not know that?
Oh, that's sad.
No, that's kind of taking the comedic steam out of that bit, John.
I don't blame Steve Irwin and I don't blame Coolio.
Coolio, I'll remind you, in the context of I made the first tasteful 9/11.
No, because Coolio was a man who could he could humble himself because he had a go at Weird Al for doing Amish Paradise, his Gangsters Paradise, but then he kind of came around and said, "Oh, listen, I didn't really understand whatever," and I thought, "Oh, that's pretty decent," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, all right, we're going to let Coolio off.
Cross off
and
Coolio.
You don't want to get on the wrong side of the estate of Steve Irwin, which really leaves us. Lastly, there now having seen a sample of this infamous pilot.
Yeah,
you did sort of get offside with the US Army.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, maybe.
A powerful enemy, I think fair to say, and possibly even a more dangerous enemy, especially in 2007, emos. There was a clutch of real emos there that arguably you made look a little foolish.
It could have been the emos. How old are the emos now? They're like
they're 46.
Yeah. They're all running things now.
But finally, and it's hard to avoid this feeling a little bit here.
That's
John,
my fault.
Self-sabotage. Yeah. I got to say, as you've just said to us, I would sell out if I thought it was going to work. So I'm thinking that in the process of this, making a glossy pilot for the Americans, there's something in your head just thinking, going, nah, this is not.
Oh no,
this ain't me.
I'd love for something. I'd totally be happy for something like that to work if it worked, if you know what I mean. But I feel like I'm not deliberately counterculture. I'm just failed at being mainstream. It's a bit like, it's like when you're not a socialist, you're just a failed capitalist or whatever. So no, I'd happily, because I think good stuff is in, it's not like South Park. Oh, by the way, Matt Stone from South Park, he's in my Kanye book. If I can drop that thing or whatever. That was
and
good
if you want to know more,
yes,
buy the book. Now, look, I feel a little bit dissatisfied with the not being able to nail somebody for a crime today. So, given that,
yes,
I am going to use this opportunity of having you in front of us to try and wrap up a different crime. Okay, sure. Surprise!
Yeah.
Last season on Pitch Bleak, we conducted an extensive interview with one Rove McManus. And he told us the harrowing tale of his entire business basically burning to the ground in the year 2004. Now, we went all through that. We went through an extensive suspect list, much like we have now.
Yes.
I can't remember where we came down. I think we pinned it on Andrew O'Keefe or somebody, or possibly a mouse. Unclear. Now, in the process of researching for this interview, I was reminded of the fact that you, sir, in episode 1 of John Safran Vs God, placed a fatwa, had a fatwa placed on Rove McManus.
Sounds a lot worse than it is.
And that happened, and I checked this, only about 6 weeks before this catastrophic fire of roving enterprises.
Oh, really? I never knew that. Wow.
Well, I put it to you, sir.
That I lit the fire, or I encourage people to burn down roads. Not at all. I do that.
There are no coincidences.
Yes.
John Safran.
All right. So, are we letting John go?
We don't have evidence to keep you on the death of John Safran Saves America.
Yes.
However, the further investigations of Rove's unreleased show, the live show. That's all. Go and listen to the episode, John.
Okay,
you'll get some background on this.
It's fine. We've got him stressed out here.
Bonus content. He's genuinely worried.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, John.
No worries.
Your book?
Thank you very much.
Your book?
It's called Squat, a week squatting at Kanye's mansion.
And it is
by the good people at Penguin Random House.
It's out now at all
everywhere.
Good bookstores.
Online. There's nowhere it's not out. It's an audio book. It's a regular book. It's an e-book. There's nothing.
Do you do the audio book?
Yeah, I do the audio
Fantastic.
book.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, John.
No, thank you.
John Safran, thank you. Another case closed. Detective Bevis.
That was a tough one.
Unexpectedly challenging. Emotionally challenging.
Okay.
Do you experience emotions on the job?
Not here. In my other job. I work at
Are
Subway.
you moonlighting?
The Subway.
I don't know if that's allowed, actually.
Hey,
talk to the boss about this. Yep.
Before we finish the day, can I give you an idea before you leave? And we can decide if it's good or not. Has it got legs to the back?
All right. Okay. What do you got?
Do you want the choice or you want me to hit you straight up?
Oh, it's too late in the day for a choice.
Okay. Well, this is a sketch idea.
Sketch, yep.
Oh, no, it's not.
Okay. So far,
no, it is a sketch.
Middling.
It is a sketch idea. Have you been to the optometrist? Do you like going to the optometrist? Are you an optometrist?
I have been to the optometrist, yes. It's become it's so much more technical these days than it used to be.
Why?
So many devices, so many eye-based video games. It's too much. It's gone woke.
What is your feeling when you're in there, like doing these video games?
Fear.
Why though? Why?
Because
let's unpack that.
Because I may misrepresent my actual optic ability.
This is what I'm talking about, and this is where the sketch is, right?
Yeah.
You know when they're like 1 or 2.
Oh yeah.
And and I am filled with fear when they do that.
It's my nightmare.
Okay, good. And I'm like, what? I'm like, if I think about that further, I'm like, I don't want to catch them out because they'll think I'm lying. And I'm like, what?
Oh, they'll know.
So that's the sketch, right? Someone's in the seat. It's like 1 or 2, one or 2.
Yeah.
And there's like 2. And then they do it a few times. And then as they're leaving, the optometrist like starts going, like a big bell rings. He's like, we have a liar.
Shit.
Yeah. And the whole thing is just pointed at the person. He's like, he's lying.
The shutters come down.
Everyone's laughing at you because you chose the wrong 1 or 2.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the sketch. And it's just like, and then paraded down the street. Like,
yep. A humiliation.
And
ritual. Do you get your prescription?
Yeah, they give you your liar's prescription.
You go into your optical venue of choice. You get your eye test, and that's on the taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
That's done. That's you're ready to walk out, and they're just going, well, now you'll need some frames, sir, at a mere, they $200 and up on the way out. Now, if you're a liar, well, I'm afraid the only ones available to you are these liar, pants on fire varieties. They're all in orange.
They all say emblazoned with
liar. Yeah.
Do not trust this man.
No.
He's the liar. He's an idiot. He's a thief.
But of course, this is the thing. I mean, we say lies, but we just don't know. Well, that's the thing for me because I'm going 1 or 2, 1 or 2. Is I don't know. I might have seen this one before. They're saying 1 or 2.
It's like, joke's on you. That was 2 from.
Well, exactly. What are they doing?
You're an idiot. You didn't. That was a trick one.
There's a huge amount of trust involved here.
Yes, I used to work at an optometrist.
What?
Yeah.
You're not still working there?
No.
How many jobs have you got?
At once between Subway and here at the cop shop. Yeah, just the 2.
No.
So it's just 3 shifts a week I do at Subway. Anyway, so
I'll still have to look into that.
I worked at a store that was open on Thursday night, late night shopping, and another mate of mine that I met at this workplace worked at another one, and we're the only ones doing late night shopping, but no one was around, so it was just the 2 of us. There were no optometrists. We were just there.
Oh.
And this was the days of fax machines.
Yeah.
And we just used to fax each other tic-tac-toe. We'd play. And unbeknownst to us, faxing between stores, but also a copy would be sent, we didn't know, would be sent to the head office. So in the morning, someone came in just to reams and reams, but it had like all the evidence attached. It was like Hayden Bevis at 7:59 sent this from this.
That is a slam dunk. That's way tighter evidence than we've ever had in this unit.
Anyway, that is the sketch. Lying optometrist. Has it got legs?
I think it's got some legs. I think it's worth some further investigation.
Thanks, Chris.